Hi besties. It's time for another, technically a monthly wrap up, except this is for the past 2 months. Hi friends. I have COVID right now and my skin is having some sort of breakout as a result. But I know it's almost July and I haven't posted this. I edited the whole thing in the first 2 days of June and then completely forgot it existed. So it's coming to you late. Not that anyone was waiting on the edge of your seat for it, but I had to address that. Enjoy. Because let's just say, what month was it? April was a slow one for me. So I decided there was no point in filming a wrap up. So I just combined April and May, except then May is the most books I've ever read in any month ever. So this is going to be a very rapid fire review of the 17 books that I read over the last 2 months. Listen, I know some people read 17 books in 1 month, but like that will never be me. You'll never see that on here. So this is a very special treat. This is going to be a long one. I'm actually very excited to talk about these books. It's been stowing up in my head for the past 2 months. So yeah, I'm just gonna jump right in. Get this going. So the first book that I finished in April was Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is a light fantasy about a cafe in Japan that in certain conditions has the ability to send you back in time to a moment that took place in that cafe to meet a person who has also been in that cafe at some point. I heard a lot about this. This is like very widely considered to be like a 5-star book, so I went in with high expectations, and I think what I do a lot of the time is like craft an image in my head of what a book is going to be like, and I did this with this book and I was a little bit disappointed. I was kind of picturing like a very like cozy, like conversation heavy or like vibe heavy book, if that makes sense. Like I was picturing like a lot of just like conversations between ex-lovers, people who have passed. Like I was expecting it to be like, people talk about it as a very mellow, like emotional book. And it was emotional, but it was also like very kind of like plot heavy. And it also definitely suffered from written by a man syndrome, which is what I like to call when a book is written by a man and like you can like painfully tell, you know? So set up over the course of basically 4 different stories in this cafe. And the last one, or no, is that spoily? I mean, I've said it now. The last one is about a topic that I feel like I hate when a man writes, like really hate it. Like it kind of felt like doing it for like emotional points, but it's like, it's hard to say without giving you what it is, and I'm not going to give away what it is because it's not going to be a trigger for everyone. But if you have any triggers about like pregnancy troubles or kind of like women's health issues, if you find like that stuff triggering, like look at the trigger warnings at least. I'm not saying don't read it, but look at the trigger warnings. I hope that doesn't give away what it is. I don't think it does because it's probably not what you're thinking. But I just kind of was like, this feels icky coming from a man, and I don't love that this is a plot point. And the way it was written was very, I don't know, it felt, if you've read the book, I would love to have a discussion about this because I feel like I don't want to share too much, but like I don't know. It gave me bad vibes. Everyone really loves this book. Hope I didn't put you off if you've been wanting to read it. Generally, people seem to give this book 5 stars. I think I gave it a 3 stars or 3.5 stars, which is still good. It wasn't painful. The writing is pretty decent. And I know there is another one which is like Tales from the Cafe, which might be more up my alley. Like it might be more just like vibes and not like this whole kind of dramatic plot, which I wasn't expecting. So I might read that one day, but also like, as I said, written by a man syndrome. So I finished that on like the 2nd or the 3rd of the month, so I was like on a roll. I was feeling good about my speed. So I was like, I had a day before me and my friend were going away to stay at my grand's caravan in the middle of nowhere. So I had a whole day free and I was like, I'm just gonna read for 24 hours and just see if I can finish a book in that time because I'm a slow reader. So I decided to pick up Leave the World Behind by Roman Alam. Funny I did that. The reason I picked this book up for this specific time was because me and my friend were going to stay in the middle of nowhere, and this book happens to be about staying in the middle of nowhere and fucked up shit starts to happen. So this is about a family who decide to go on a holiday. They stay in this little vacation house. Little, it was huge, I don't know why I said little. This vacation house in the middle of nowhere, and in the middle of the night, Parasite style, if you've seen Parasite, you know, in the middle of the night the whole vibe kind of changes and two people arrive at the door saying, we're the people that own this Airbnb, we're the people that you're buying this from or like renting from, we need to come in because the entire city, I'm pretty sure it was New York or something, has gone dark, like it's a blackout and we're scared, we don't know what's going on, you have to let us in. And basically from there it is a very unnerving unraveling of not knowing what the fuck is going on, no power, no contact with the outside world, and crazy shit is happening. This book is scary in a way that it's not like most horror, or at least a way that I feel like I want to read more horror like, which is there's no like big bad, there's no explanation, you don't know what's going on, but that's why it's terrifying. There's just like a lingering feeling that things are very weird and very much not how they're supposed to be, and you feel unsafe and you feel creeped out. There are definitely problems with this book. I think I only gave it like 3.5 stars. Definitely suffers with written by a man syndrome for sure. There's like a lot of weird sexual bits, but like I am sure that this book is smart and that they are a symbol for desire or lust or overconsumption or something like that, but like it's not so plain, so it felt a little bit weird when I was reading it, but it definitely did its fucking job. Since I read this over the course of 24 hours, which I absolutely recommend by the way, because this book takes place continuously over like 2 days as events unfold, I was unnerved. I was really creeped out, because there's just weird things happen and you don't know if the world is ending, you don't know what is happening or why these things are happening. Some things are so like they actually stick in my head as so creepy and I don't even know why. Like on the surface, if this event was isolated it wouldn't be creepy, but it actually gives me like shivers when I think about it because I don't know why. I can't. And then we went and stayed in the middle of nowhere, and the whole time I was like, anytime like something weird happened or like the lights were like a little, I was like, this is it. This is fucking it. Yeah, there's definitely some good commentary in here about race and wealth and class, and I'm sure there's so much that I didn't pick up on, because I trust the people that recommended this to me. They like smart books, so I trust them. But yeah, if you're into, like, if you like how I just described it, I would say give it a shot and try and read it in like one sitting if you can, because it's effective. Oh, but I will say this has a very ambiguous ending. My voice just cracked. Yeah, very ambiguous ending, so if you're not into that, like if you want like a solid wrap up, this might not be for you, because as I said, I'm not going to tell you whether you find out what's going on or not, because that's like part of the book, but yes, if you're not into ambiguous endings, this might frustrate you. So what happened then? I was on a great pace. You're thinking, Maeve, you said you didn't read that much, what's happening? This is like the 4th of the month and you've read 2 books. Then we went away and me and my friend decided to buddy read The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I'm not going to talk about The Goldfinch until the time that I actually ended up finishing it, which is, spoiler alert, the last book of the 2 months. Not for bad reasons, you'll see my review, but yeah, basically that took up a lot of this month, was me getting in a reading slump completely unrelated to The Goldfinch, but The Goldfinch suffered at the hands of that because it is almost 900 pages. So that took up a lot of the month. I just couldn't read for a lot of it. But then a little something. Oh wait, no. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're not getting to the Netflix show that we all know what I'm going to talk about. Yeah, we're not getting to that yet. I decided to read something easy to try and get out of my slump, and I read Percy Jackson the Lightning Thief. Please don't talk about how ugly this cover is. It's a hate crime, especially because these beautiful ones just came out. I can't believe I bought this just before that. But yes, I read Percy Jackson for the first time ever, may I say. This was accompanied by an audiobook. This girl does it for free on YouTube. It's literally just her sitting and like reading the whole book, and I was like, thank you. So while I was out, I was also listening to it, but primarily reading it. Do I need to give a synopsis for Percy Jackson? Like, Percy Jackson is a half-blood, meaning that he is half god, half human, demigod, if you will. Is that what a demigod is? I've read so much Greek myth and I don't even know. And turns out he's in danger because Zeus doesn't like him for reasons that you'll find out in the book. And him and two other half-bloods go on a quest. I love a quest. Of course I love a quest. They meet loads of monsters along the way from Greek myth. There's gods involved. There's fucking loads of shit involved. Medusa's there. It's great. I didn't love this as much as probably other people who read it in their childhood, and I have read middle grade that I enjoyed more. But it was still a great time. A quest with Greek little mythology inspired monsters. It's always going to be a good time. Yeah, I have started listening to the audiobook. Spoiler for next video. I've started listening to the audiobook for Sea of Monsters, which is the next one in the series. So I'm very excited, and I'm so excited for the fucking show. More casting. There's like 7 cast members announced now, and they're all perfect. So I'm so excited for the show. But yeah, read Percy Jackson for the first time. Then, as I was saying before, a certain Netflix show came out which led to some obsessive reading. I did do a YouTube video. The one before this is me doing a vlog of reading all of the Heartstopper novels for the first time. I read them all in a day because they are like an hour each. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. All of them are 5 stars because I love them too much to be objective. Like, you could tell me why they shouldn't be 5 stars and in one ear and out the other. I don't care. Not much to say about these. I'm sure you've heard of Heartstopper. It's about Charlie and Nick. They're gay in high school and they fall in love. This, like, I'd never read a graphic novel before, and this made me realize that I love them. Like, I love artwork. I love looking at art. I love art included in stories. So I was like, why did I think I wouldn't like graphic novels? That's literally all it is a book and artwork. That was all I read in April. As I said, it was taken up, most of the month was taken up by the Goldfinch, but still, Heartstopper, they lifted the number count up, but it kind of doesn't count because they're each like literally an hour to read. But so then moving on to May, and I started off May, I was really still in like the Heartstopper mindset. I decided to get on NetGalley, which is a place for book reviewers and content creators, which I hate saying that, but especially on this YouTube account where I have like 30 subscribers. I do use TikTok to make book videos, and I have like decent following on there, not really, but enough that I get to get books online. So I read Taproot by Keezy Young, and this is another queer graphic novel that I did get on NetGalley, and so cute. You know, it wasn't like the most impressive thing. The dialogue is pretty lackluster, not lackluster. This is about a gardener who also happens to be a necromancer, and so he can see all the ghosts, he can see all the dead people in the town, and there's one in particular that's a little cutie, and you can see where this is going. It gets more complicated when a reaper turns up. It was wholesome. I loved the artwork. There was a lot of kind of greenery. I'll put some photos here. A lot of greenery was kind of one side of it, very naturalistic, very vibrant. And then the other part, because it was also about dead people, was very dark and horror-esque and gritty, and I loved both. I loved both art styles. Honestly, the dark part is probably a highlight for me. I just love like creepy aesthetics, even though like I can't handle horror. I love like visually horror stuff. Love it. And this was a great balance, and I just think it worked well. It was so cute. It was really, really cute. Again, you can literally read it in like half an hour 45 minutes. And after that I started the Read Your Own Adventure challenge, which took place on TikTok, and it was so much fun. It was run by these amazing content creators on TikTok. They came up with quests, they came up with prompts, they came up with this whole story for this readathon that was just so cool. They had different teams, and I was on Team Rogue, which basically meant I was not reading one particular genre, I was reading all different genres. So the first prompt for that was read a book by multiple authors, and I did not have one. On the 1st of May, when the readathon started, I did not have a book like that. So I went out and bought This Is Where You Lose the Time. That's not what it's called at all. This is How You Lose the Time War by Alam El Motar and Max Gladstone. This has been on my radar for a long time. I've heard a very lyrical, sapphic story. I didn't really realise how sci-fi it was, but it's sci-fi. Two women on either side of a time war, which I can't tell you what the time war is about or what it means to say they're in a time war. I literally couldn't tell you. You just have to believe me. They communicate via letters. They start communicating via letters, and it's very dense. That's the first thing I'll tell you. Very dense. Very lyrical. And I'm sure very rewarding if you can give it the time of day to like really analyse the text. But if you don't, I promise you'll have no fucking idea what's going on. I struggled with knowing what was metaphorical and what was real. Because it was so lyrical, it seemed like there would be a lot of metaphorical shit. But also it's a sci-fi world, so a lot of the really bizarre imagery that was happening, I was like, is it real or is it not? My advice is just to assume that it's all real. Like, just assume that whatever is being said is actually happening, and just visualize it and just don't question anything, because it is like a made up world. It felt too dense for its own good. Again, like as I said, I'm sure it's very rewarding, but like it was almost pretentious at times, or like very like flowery, and like you kind of don't expect to have to like really work to know what they actually feel about each other, and I do appreciate that. And again, I know why it works for so many people, and I think that in the future I'm gonna read this again and I'm sure it could work for me, but at this time I was like, this is almost painful, because it's like I have to try so hard to know what's going on or what they actually are thinking, and then out of nowhere, seemingly to me, I'm sure it isn't, but seemingly to me out of nowhere, it was like, oh, they're just in love with each other, like so fucking passionately. And I was like, what? Why did this happen? I don't know, because it was so cryptic, so masked and caked in flowery words that it was like literally like a puzzle. I'm gonna give you a little quote from this book to kind of give you an idea of the language, and this is the entire book is like this. This isn't like one flowery sentence, this is the whole book. We treat the past as trellis, coax our vineyard through and around, and harvest is not the word for swiftness. The future harvests us, stomps us into wine, pours us back into the root system in loving libation, and we go stronger and more potent together. Like, that's an impressive sentence to write, right? Well, it's like 2 sentences. It's a little much, isn't it, for an entire book like that? Very mysterious, very, very dense. Don't go into this thinking it's gonna be a light little short read, which is what I did. You fool. The next prompt for the Read Your Own Adventure was a book with, I keep stuttering over my words, was a book with trans or non-binary rep, so I just decided to reread volume 3 of Heartstopper. Out of all the Heartstopper novels, this is my favourite one for Elle, which is the trans main character, so I decided to reread this one. It was also kind of just to help myself out, because I was expecting to not get much read this month, and I actually wanted to complete the challenge, so I was like, I'll give myself a nice graphic novel to kind of move that process along. But yeah, love it, cried, laughed, love the Paris trip, so excited to see this in season 2. And then the next prompt for the challenge was a book with flowers on the cover. Flowers are plants. So I've finally, good grief, finally read Circe by Madeline Miller. This cover is absolutely gorgeous. But then, applause, commotion, please, for Under the Dust Jacket. Are you joking? It's gorgeous, and look at the map. So this is by the author of Song of Achilles, who, that's one of my favourite books of all time, like top 2 favourite books of all time. Madeline Miller. This is about Circe, who is the daughter of Helios, who's the god of the sun. This is Greek myth, if that wasn't obvious. She has magical powers. She's a bit of a witch, a bit of a Wanda Maximoff, if you will. Sorry, Marvel on the brain. And she gets exiled to the island of Ayaya. Still don't know how to say it. I love that this book is very much a book about isolation and loneliness and community, and I feel like at this time in my life I'm just connected to it a lot. Not trying to say that I'm cripplingly lonely. I don't know how I forgot to say this, but it is a feminist retelling. I'm not sure how different it is from the original story, and it's not like proper man hating, unfortunately, but she does turn men into pigs, so if you're into that. This book is great. Madeline Miller is such a good writer. Like I actually feel like I didn't pay my dues enough to this book. A lot of the first half I wasn't connecting to as much. It's very much just like no real plot. It's just about someone's life with like great writing, like amazing poetic writing. Not dense like the last one, but just poetic and so particular and amazing. And then as I went on, I connected more and more. I thought the story got more interesting. I connected to the characters all more, which naturally, as a book moves on, you connect more. But yeah, I cried at the end of this for some reason. I don't even know why I was crying. I know that right now Madeline Miller's writing a story about Persephone and Hades. So we will be fucking tuning in for that. Yeah, this has inspired me to have a Song of Achilles reread. Lord, I want to have a Song of Achilles reread. And then I decided to start filming a video that will probably come out at some point, which is the reading popular book talk books. I think I made a big mistake when I picked the books I was going to do for this, which is they're basically all young adult, which is like, I love young adult, but the popular book talk young adult books. So the first one I read was Shatter Me by Taheri Mafi. I hope that's how you say their name, I'm not quite sure. But I saw this in a charity shop. This wasn't even on my original TBR for this video. I just saw the book and I was like, fine, I'll read it, because it actually, the plot seems interesting. This is a dystopian book about a girl who wakes up. She doesn't wake up. She lives in a mental hospital. The government put her there because she has the ability to kill people who she touches. Unconsensually, she just touches them and she sucks the life force out of them. She ends up in there with a boy, and that's all I'm gonna say because the book kind of spoils itself within the first 30 pages. I don't want to say too much about my thoughts on these two because I am gonna be releasing an entire video about my thoughts about these books, but let's just say it didn't blow me away, but it wasn't horrible. Wasn't horrific. I don't really see why it's as popular as it is, but I know it is a series and I assume it gets better as it goes along. Will I read the series? You'll have to watch the video to find out. I'm kidding. Probably not. Spoiler. And the next one I decided to read for this, again, I don't want to say too much about how I feel about it because then you have no reason to watch the video. But that's We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, which is very infamous, I feel like, for having kind of split opinions. You love it or you hate it or you detest it. This is about family, a very privileged large family who own a private island where they go every year. There's one friend who they always bring along as well. He's like poor, I think, and like there's a bunch of reasons he like doesn't fit in or whatever, but one girl really likes him, and then one year she has an accident of some sort. She gets like a brain injury and she can't remember what happened to her. She relies on the word of her mother, and it's basically like a what the fuck's going on type of book, except nothing happens, and that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. Moving on, I decided to have a change of pace, and this was also for the Read Your Own Adventure. This was the prompt of read a book from someone else's TBR. So I read from my amazing friend Jen. She's a TikToker for book talk and I love her with my whole soul. So I decided to read Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. First of all, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how this is the most gorgeous book you've ever seen in your entire living existence. Every vibe that you get from this cover is the vibe inside. This is a fairy tale inspired book based on Chinese and Japanese mythology about a princess named Shiori who can practice magic, but magic is banned in this kingdom, which I'll show you the map. I fucking love a map in a book, and this blew me out the water. Like, really incredible. But yes, her kingdom does not accept magic. Magic is banned. She already ends up exiled. She is cursed to have a bowl on her head, which makes it so no one can see her, no one can know who she is, and also she can't speak. Like, she cannot vocalize. She also can't use magic. And this is basically a quest story to get home. There's a lot more, there's so much more to the plot than that, but it's kind of like fun to go into this book not knowing about it, because there was a lot of things like near the start, like plot points that I didn't know about, and I was like, like, there's a lot in here that's very, very fun. I can't believe I forgot to say that there's a magical creature companion called Kiki, who is a magical paper bird come to life, and oh my god, I would fucking die for her. There's dragons, there's snakes, as I said, there's demons, there's cranes, there's good food descriptions, there's fun characters, there's lovable characters, there's hateable characters. But my favourite thing about this book is that it is just so consistent. The whole way through, it is entertaining. Like, genuinely, I wanted to stay up all night reading this book, and I do not get that with books. Like, I am so easily distracted. But this book was so much fun, and it was just so... like, the whole time, I just had such fun with it. There was no dip. It just was consistently intriguing and entertaining and progressing all the time. There is like a subplot of romance, which I don't really care about romance in young adult, but I shed a little tear. And it's like a subplot and I shed a tear. I generally just shed a tear at the end of this book. Not gonna tell you if it's sad or whatever, but I shed many tears. There's a sequel coming out this year, and Lord, I've been begging for an advanced reader copy of that book. Beg. Yeah, this was, can you tell this was a 5-star for me? Like, I just loved it. I just had such a fun time with this book. I miss it, I really do. Then I decided to read my first ever solely audiobook. Like, I've used an audiobook along with books before, but this was the first time just listening to an audiobook. I just thought when I was out, I was not in the mood to listen to music, so I was like, let me just read an audiobook. So I decided to read A Study in Scarlet, the first ever Sherlock Holmes novel. I have a collection of Sherlock Holmes short stories that I have dipped into every once in a while, but this was my first ever like full Sherlock Holmes story, and definitely wasn't what I was expecting. The thing with Sherlock Holmes novels is that they're always like completely what's the word? Unfigureoutable. I don't know what the word is I'm trying to say. They always hide information from you, or at least in my experience, they always hide information so you can't figure it out, which kind of takes the fun out of it, I feel like. But basically, there was a story going, you know, there was murder, there was multiple murders, there was some plot twists, and then it was part 2, like split in half, and it was like back in the day in like a desert, and we like went to like we went to the backstory basically, but it was like literally a jump to this whole other world. Like, suddenly we were out of London, we were like in the desert, and it was like a Mormon cult, and I was like, what is happening? And I like didn't care because we were just at the climactic point, it felt like, and then it was suddenly like, and in 1912 we were here, and I was like, what? Not 1912, that's way too far. Is it? When did these come out? I don't even know. It ended up being decent. Like, the backstory did make it, it was a good backstory. Like, the motive was there. I was like, this guy might be right for this. It did feel a little out of left field, and a little like we didn't need that many details of the backstory, but it was good. I definitely think an audiobook is great for these types of things. I have these written on little bits of paper so don't forget. I think the audiobooks are good for this type of like mystery, whatever. Easy enough to follow along with. You don't need every detail, so like it's not that big of a deal if your mind wanders for a little bit. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I think I gave it 3 stars, whatever. I think I'm gonna read an Agatha Christie at some point, just compare it a little bit, but I'm not in the mood right now, so we'll see when that happens. And then we're on the last 2 books, guys. We made it. But I decided to pick up just a little, like, I don't know, I want something light and easy. I was actually feeling really unwell the last week. PCOS things, the girlies know. I decided to get something really nice and easy, and I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is my first time reading a romance novel and I wasn't entirely cringed out. In fact, I actually think I'm a romance girly now. Oh, this is crazy, I know, but I was. Even just thinking about it, I'm like kicking my feet. I've got butterflies. It was so cute. If you didn't know, these are a trilogy of books about the love life of 3 different sisters. We've got Chloe Brown, we've got Dani Brown, and we've got Eve Brown. I think it's Eve Brown. And this is Chloe Brown, and she has a chronic illness. She's in chronic pain. And so she decides to make a list of everything that she wants to do before she dies, because she gets in like a near-death experience and she realizes she hasn't lived. She's been letting herself be restricted by her illness and not take risks and try new things. So she makes a list of everything she wants to do. She moves to a new apartment, and her apartment, he's not like the landlord, he's like the guy who, you know, does the plumbing and fixes the lights or whatever. I forget what that's called, like a superintendent maybe? He's that. And they meet, and it's a enemies to lovers. Well, it's not really enemies, but like they don't like each other to lovers. There's some spice in here. It was glorious. Let me just say, I'm sure this is like literally the bare minimum of spice, but because I don't read romance, I was like literally like, no one look at me while I read this. But I loved it. It was so good. Like, Talia is the romance girly, I think. Immediately ordered to Take a Hint Dani Brown, which is the next one, of course. I have it sitting over there. I'm ready to indulge. And it also gave me some solace. As I said, this week I was ill. I have fucking health issues for days, and having a character with chronic illness, it just gave me such solace, and it felt so good, and I was like in love with this man, and then the beast has arrived. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt was finished by me on the last day of the month. So that is almost 2 months it took me to read this almost 900-page book, but I loved it. You might not believe me because it took me this long, but I did love it. This is a book about Theo Decker. Where do I start? His mother dies when he's young in a terrorist bombing in an art gallery where he steals a painting, and that kind of haunts him for the rest of his life. And we follow large portions of his adolescence and then into his adulthood in obviously some detail. It follows how this painting affects him throughout his life, how his familial and friendships affect him throughout his life, his romantic relationships. It never lingers in one place too much. It never gives you too much detail, I think. Well, there are definitely a few pages in here out of 870 or whatever. There's definitely a few pages in here with a little bit too much detail, or it's a little slow or a little unnecessary. But for the most part, the thing that impresses me the most is how entertaining it was. Like, although it took me a long time to read it, that kind of, as I said, it wasn't really the book's fault. I wasn't in the right place for it, and I wanted to give it the time of day, so I kept putting it off, because it does deserve it, because Donna Tartt is an insanely talented writer. I think writing a book this long that is that entertaining and consistent, and like the quality of the writing never drops off. It's just a book that is just well written. Like, I can't really name you specifics, but it's just so well written. And I do understand why it's not going to work for some people. It's just simply too long, and she is quite detail orientated, you know, she really puts you in the room. I was dreading that there was going to be really, really heavy detail of like, and the candle smelled like this and the walls were painted. It's not like that. Like, I can't explain it to you. I was shocked by how not boring and monotonous it was. There's like a bazillion trigger warnings. I was gonna list some, but just research them. There's quite a lot in here. It's not like a very heavy book. Like, I was worried it's going to be like A Little Life or something. Nothing like that. It does feature, you know, themes of death, parental death, general thoughts about grief, getting over grief, drug use. By the end of it, you're like, wow, I've lived with this guy. I have a connection with this guy. I know him so well. Like, he's such a real person to me. Thanks to the writing and thanks to the length. Very, very impressive. I didn't give it 5 stars only because there is a few moments that are maybe a little bit slower, but I really wanted to. Like, I still feel kind of bad about it. Like, I want to give it 5 stars because I think it does deserve it. I think it genuinely is worth your time if you're into, you know, like contemporary books that are just about someone's life. Like, it is definitely worth your time. It's huge, but I really, really enjoyed it and it felt very satisfying, and I cried on the very last page, and it really sits with you. It does. I feel like I need to mention that since filming this video, I have brought up the end of this book to my therapist because it had such a profound impact on my brain. Like, it really sits with me every day, the like things I got from this book. So I'm so excited to read more Donna Tartt in the future, but that is my video of everything I read in April and May of this year. So yeah, hope this was fun. Hope that if you were listening on 1.5 speed that you still heard everything I said. I try not to speak slow, but I do. I'm very, very excited to see you in a month, 2 months, who knows. And that video of me reading BookTok books will be out at some point. No one's sitting on the edge of the seat waiting for it, but it's fun. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you got some recommendations. Follow me on all the things if you want. I'm there. Have a great day.